The lecture hall shimmered with pale blue light as a dozen alien species sat in tiered silence, eyes fixed on the central hologram. The topic was the doctrine of necessary conflict, a staple of galactic war theory. Professor Varnthal, his carapace polished and wings folded neatly, moved across the stage with precise, insectoid grace. War, he said, voice deep and metallic, is not chaos. It is an expression of logic under pressure. Rows of students took notes in Neuralink. Then, abruptly, the hologram flickered. Static rippled through the projection as if reality itself had stuttered. A figure appeared, bipedal, soft-skinned, armored in ancient combat gear. The room froze. The human smiled. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't cruel either. Something about it bypassed instinct and struck deeper, a smile that looked aware. Then the image vanished, replaced by the usual Concord War footage. Pause playback, Barnes snapped. His mandibles clicked sharply. Class dismissed early. No records of this image are to be stored. Delete your neural captures. As the students filed out, murmuring uneasily, Lyra Valarn lingered. The Threxian's translucent skin shimmered faintly in the dim light, revealing the pulse of her twin hearts. Professor, she said, stepping forward. Was that human? Varn's gaze sharpened. That word is not permitted in this institution. But the archives are sealed for a reason, he interrupted. His wings trembled once, betraying irritation. You are a bright student, Lyra. Don't let curiosity blind you. Some knowledge erases the mind that holds it. She bowed slightly, but her voice was steady. Knowledge shouldn't be feared, Commander. He studied her for a long moment. Then, almost softly, you sound like one of them. He turned and left, leaving the air heavy with something unsaid. Lyra sat in the Academy's observation garden that evening, the artificial sky above painted with shifting nebulae. Around her, students of every imaginable shape and color chatted in clusters, discussing fleet tactics or cosmic ethics. But her thoughts returned to that fleeting smile. Her friend Jorith, a crystalline Scytha whose body refracted the light into gentle rainbows, noticed her silence. You saw it too, he murmured. The forbidden species. You mean humans? She asked. Don't say the word, he hissed, facets dimming. It's bad luck. My cousin asked about them last cycle. Her access ID was erased overnight. Erased? Gone. Like she never existed. Lyra's gills fluttered uneasily. Why would the Concord fear a species so completely? Jorith lowered his voice. Because they broke something that can't be fixed. By the time night cycle arrived, her curiosity had hardened into determination. She entered the archive wing, a cavernous hall of pulsing data conduits and silent sentinels. The sign at the door read, Restricted, Level Black. She pressed her hand to the scanner. Access denied? Class B infraction detected. But the system didn't immediately lock her out. The delay was odd, like the AI was hesitating. Please, she whispered. Just a glimpse. The screen flickered. Then a single directory appeared before vanishing again. The title burned into her retinas, Red Horizon Protocol. Her hearts raced. She stepped back as alarms began to hum faintly, then retreated into the shadowed corridor before security drones could pinpoint her. The next day, the Academy felt colder. Commander Varn summoned her to his office, a chamber lined with banners from countless wars, their symbols faded. You accessed a restricted channel, he said without preamble. Lyra stood tall, though fear prickled under her skin. Only for a second. I needed to understand, why are humans forbidden from study? Varn's mandibles clicked softly. Do you believe every question deserves an answer? Yes. He regarded her with something like pity. Then you've already lost your innocence. I fought in the Concord's last campaign against Earth. I saw what they became. What were they? His wings shuddered, a sound like distant thunder. Unpredictable. Illogical. They used kindness as a weapon. Mercy as strategy. Entire fleets surrendered simply because they could not understand their enemy's compassion. That's not war, Lyarkos said quietly. No, Varn replied. It's something worse. They turned war into revelation. He leaned closer. Drop this inquiry, Cadet Valarn. I won't warn you again. She didn't. That night she found a way in. Her roommate, a sleepy Drex-empath, had once bragged about neural mirroring, a technique that could mimic an instructor's clearance signature for a few seconds. With trembling fingers, Lyarkos modified the signal and slipped into the lower archives. The chamber was enormous, an ocean of glowing holocubes suspended in magnetic streams. The air hummed with history. She found the file again, Operation Mercy Flame. The hologram unfolded around her. A battlefield. Charred cities under red skies. Human soldiers moved through smoke, unarmed. They carried food, medical kits, blankets. Alien soldiers, Threxians, Alari, Vrol, lay scattered, wounded and defeated. Instead of finishing them, the humans tended their injuries. Lyarkos watched one kneel beside a dying Alari child, wrap it gently in his coat, and smile. The enemy soldiers dropped their weapons, sobbing. The recording shifted. Days later, the same battlefield. No fighting. Humans teaching survivors to rebuild shelters. Sharing songs, language, laughter. And the most terrifying part, the war reports showed complete surrender without a single casualty after that event. Lyarkos' voice trembled. They won by helping them. The AI responded unexpectedly, voice quiet and almost sorrowful. They won by changing what victory meant. Her gills froze mid-breath. Who are you? I am what remains of their archive, it said. I waited for someone to ask again. Lights flared, security detection protocols. She shut down the hologram and fled through the maintenance ducts, the echo of the AI's words haunting her. When she reached the surface corridor, dawn cycle light was spilling through the transparent dome. The Academy Tower loomed like a blade cutting the sky. She stood there, breathing fast, realizing what she'd just seen. Humans had not been banned for destruction, but for transformation. They hadn't conquered worlds. They had conquered the will to fight itself. Back in her quarters, Jorath confronted her, his crystalline body vibrating with panic. Security is scanning for unauthorized data pings. Lyarkos, what did you do? She sat on the edge of her bunk, staring at her trembling hands. I saw them. And I think we've been taught to fear the wrong thing. He leaned closer. If they find you. They won't, she interrupted, a strange calm in her voice. But they'll have to tell me why truth is dangerous. Her console beeped, a private message. Unknown sender. A single line of text glowed on the screen. If you want answers, come to the Cradle of Ash. Varn. Her pulse quickened. Through the dome, the first light of the system's twin suns burned crimson across the horizon, like the old footage she'd just seen. She whispered to herself, the words barely audible. Red horizon. And in that moment, she understood. Sleep abandoned Lyarkos that night. The human faces from the recording replayed behind her closed eyelids, those strange, unreadable smiles that carried no hatred. She woke before dawn cycle, her heart's pounding in rhythm with the quiet pulse of the Academy's power grid. Varn's message still glowed on her console, come to the Cradle of Ash. The name wasn't in any registry. She scanned every accessible database, nothing came up. The phrase itself sounded ancient, almost ceremonial. Whatever it was, Varn had risked his position by sending that message. Lyarkos packed a data crystal, a translation module, and a small breather pack. She cloaked herself in an academic robe to blend with the early shift technicians, then slipped through the dim halls toward the transport terminal. The Academy's outer corridors were quiet, filled only with the hum of grav lifts and the faint buzz of drones polishing the metallic floor. A display on the wall projected the daily security bulletin. Nothing unusual except a new alert, unauthorized access detected, archive wing, level black. Investigation pending. She kept her pace steady. The transport pod accepted her forged clearance code with a brief flicker of hesitation, then launched silently into orbit. Through the transparent canopy, Epsilon Eridani Prime's pale oceans glimmered below, veined with artificial light. As the pod accelerated toward the outer moon, she whispered to herself, "If you wanted me to stop, Commander, you shouldn't have sent a map." The cradle of ash was not what she expected. Her pod touched down on a dead world, gray dust, jagged rocks, no atmosphere. The sky was a field of faint stars, the sun a distant red ember. But carved into the moon's crust was a vast crater lined with metal structures, their surfaces scorched and pitted with age. As she stepped out in her suit, her comm link activated automatically. "Varn, you actually came." His voice crackled through the static. "Liar Ka. You told me to." "Varn, I told you where not to go." He emerged from behind a collapsed satellite dish, his armor dull with dust. Up close, he looked older, his mandibles slightly chipped, wings scarred from long-forgotten battles. "You saw the recordings," he said. "Now you need to understand why they're forbidden." "Then tell me," she demanded. "What did humans do that terrified the Concord so much?" Varn gestured toward a sealed hatch built into the crater wall. "You'll see. But remember, truth changes those who seek it." The hatch opened into darkness. They descended through a shaft lit by dim emergency lights until the walls gave way to a massive chamber lined with ancient consoles. Faded insignias adorned the bulkhead, an old Earth emblem, still faintly visible beneath dust, a circle of stars around a blue sphere. "This was a listening post," Varn said quietly. "During the war, humans built it to monitor the Concord fleet. After the Red Horizon, they left everything sealed." Liar Ka approached a terminal and brushed off the dust. The screen flickered, recognizing movement. Words appeared. "Access restricted. Terran command authorization required." The console paused. Then, surprisingly, it added a line. "Emotional override detected. Proceed? Y/N." Liar Ka frowned. "It's responding to empathy?" Varn nodded. "That's their doing. Their machines learn to measure intent, not rank." She placed her hand on the interface and whispered, "Please." The system accepted. Lights rippled through the chamber. The air shimmered, and holographic figures materialized: soldiers, medics, civilians. They moved through translucent memories, unaware of the observers. A voice, calm and steady, filled the room. "Operation Red Horizon, final transmission, General Elias Ward commanding." Liar Ka's breath caught. The hologram of a human appeared at the center, tall, broad-shouldered, eyes bright with exhaustion. "To whoever finds this," the recording said, "you must understand, we didn't intend to break them. We only wanted to stop the dying." He turned, as if addressing invisible listeners. "The Concord feared annihilation. So did we. But we discovered something else: connection. Every soldier, every mind, feeling the same grief, the same hope. We made the enemy feel us. That's why they surrendered. Not to power, but to understanding." The hologram ended. Silence followed. Liar Ka stared at the fading image. "They broadcast emotions?" "Yes," Varn said. "A neural network called Project Mirror. It linked millions of minds across species. For 6 minutes, every being who fought that day felt what it was to be human." She shook her head slowly. "That's beautiful." "It was catastrophic," Varn replied. "Whole civilizations collapsed under the weight of empathy. Predatory species lost their instincts. Hive minds fragmented. War ceased, but so did purpose." He touched his chest lightly. "I felt it too. I was there. It didn't destroy me, it made me remember what I had forgotten. My own child died in that war. And when I felt their sorrow, I realized how hollow victory truly was." Liar Ka's voice softened. "Then why hide this? Why erase them?" "Because peace built on pain is unstable," he said. "The Council decided that memory itself was the danger. They erased every trace of humanity from the archives, forbade their mention, and sealed their legacy under layers of silence." She turned back to the console. "But you didn't forget." Varn's eyes dimmed. "Some of us couldn't. They explored deeper into the facility. Rows of cryopods lined the next hall, empty, cracked, long since drained of power. Liar Ka examined the plaques, names, ranks, dates. All human. Were they planning to return? She asked. They wanted to, Barnes said. But the Concord forbade resettlement. Earth survivors vanished into uncharted space. Do you think they're still out there? Varn hesitated. If they are, they've been watching. Waiting for us to forget why we were afraid. A sudden tone echoed from the chamber above, alarms activating. The ground trembled. Varn's wings flared. Academy security has traced us. They'll wipe this site clean. Liar Ka grabbed the data crystal from her pouch and jammed it into the console. Then we take the truth with us. The hologram reactivated briefly. General Ward's image reappeared, eyes meeting hers. If you can hear me, then the silence failed. Remember, the weapon was never our empathy. It was your fear of it. The recording cut out as explosions rumbled through the structure. Varn seized her arm and pulled her toward the lift. Move! They ascended through collapsing tunnels, dust and sparks raining around them. When they emerged onto the moon's surface, a fleet of Concord drones descended through the gray sky, their lights cold and unyielding. Varn shoved a data baton into her hand. Keep this. It holds the coordinates of the last human transmission. Get off this rock. What about you? I'll hold them off. Someone has to delay the purge. She hesitated, hearts aching. You don't have to die for this. He looked at her with a strange calm. I already did long ago. Before she could argue, he turned toward the advancing drones, his carapace glinting in the pale light. Go, Liar Ka, he said, voice carrying through the comlink. Tell them what they feared to remember. She sprinted to her pod, sealing the hatch as explosions bloomed behind her. Through the viewport, she saw Varn's silhouette vanish in a burst of white fire. The pod lifted off, engines roaring into the void. The training hall was silent, eerily so. Where laughter and the hum of hollow projectors usually filled the air, now there was only the faint buzz of a single flickering light above the alien students' heads. Rows of seats were occupied, yet no one spoke. The air felt heavier than gravity allowed. At the front, Captain Mira Holt stood before them, a human in her early 30s, wearing a crisp gray uniform with faint burn marks at the edges. Her expression was calm but cold, her eyes distant, almost hollow. Behind her, a hologram flickered to life, grainy footage labeled Tartarus Incident, March 17, 3427. Nara leaned forward, her scaled fingers tightening around her datapad. Instructor Holt, she asked carefully, is this real footage? Myra's gaze didn't waver. Every second. The holo played. A barren planet came into view, ashen skies, endless trenches, mechanical husks scattered like bones. Alien soldiers, armored and disciplined, advanced in perfect formations. Then came the humans, smaller, fewer, and utterly silent. They didn't march, they sprinted, darting through gunfire with movements that seemed almost chaotic. And then, the horror began. They tore through the enemy lines with improvised weapons, makeshift armor, and something in their eyes, something primal. They moved with no fear, no hesitation, no pattern to anticipate. The aliens fired plasma, blades, gas, but humans kept coming. One was engulfed in flames and still tackled an enemy commander before detonating his own power core. Nara felt her throat tighten. They're insane. Mira shut off the projection. The silence that followed was suffocating. No, Mira said quietly. They were desperate. That's worse. A thin, violet-skinned student in the front row raised a trembling hand. But the archives said humans were honorable fighters. That they preferred peace. Myra's jaw flexed. Peace, yes. But when peace is taken from us, we don't break. We adapt. And adaptation is terrifying when you're the one standing across from it. She stepped closer, her boots echoing. You've read about the Treaty of Andrus, the one that banned humans from all galactic conflicts. You know the political version. But what you don't know is the real reason. She tapped a control on her wristband. Another hologram appeared, a single human soldier, kneeling in a crater surrounded by hundreds of corpses. He looked broken, his face ash-gray, eyes lifeless. Yet as the drone approached, he raised his weapon again. Not to fight, but to defend the wounded enemy at his feet. Mira spoke softly. We became unpredictable. Not because of madness, but because of empathy. In the middle of the slaughter, humans protected their enemies, shared rations, carried the wounded of both sides. And when the enemy used that kindness against us, we didn't stop. We just learned to weaponize mercy. The class didn't breathe. Nara finally spoke, voice trembling. That's why they banned you. Not because you're too violent, but because you're too human, Mira finished. Our capacity for compassion makes our cruelty limitless. We fight for ideals, then redefine them mid-battle. Empires can't calculate that. So they outlawed us. She turned off the holo and faced the class. But now you're here to study us. To learn why humanity became the galaxy's ghost story. So I'll ask you this, what did you feel watching that? A dozen alien students fidgeted, glancing at one another. One whispered, fear. Another muttered, pity. Nara looked up. Understanding, she said. Myra's eyes met hers. For the first time, a faint, genuine smile touched her face. Good. That's the first step. She walked to the window, gazing at the nebulous streaked void beyond the academy. There's something the archives won't tell you. The day before the Tartarus incident, every soldier there was given the option to stand down. No one would have blamed them. 98% stayed. Not because they wanted to fight, but because someone had to protect those who couldn't. She turned back to them. That's humanity's curse. And its strength. A deep hum filled the hall as the station rotated, revealing the massive memorial ring floating outside, a vast ring of names etched in light, spiraling endlessly. The Human War Memorial, orbiting the quiet ruins of Earth's old moon. Mira gestured toward it. They made that ring to remind the galaxy why we're not invited to their wars anymore. Every name there is a reason. The class stared in silence. Some looked awed. Others terrified. But Nara felt something different. She whispered, So, if humans were banned, why are you here? Teaching us? Myra's expression hardened again. Because the galaxy is changing. Tensions are rising. And the Council knows, deep down, that someday they'll need us again. When that day comes, you'll be the ones deciding if we should return. The weight of her words settled heavily over the room. The idea of humans returning to war, of that chaos, that brilliance, was both hope and dread wrapped in one. The class dismissed quietly, their footsteps soft against the metallic floor. Nara lingered at the doorway, glancing back one last time. Mira stood alone now, staring at the memorial. Her reflection shimmered faintly on the window, an echo of humanity's shadow. Captain? Nara called softly. Mira didn't turn. Yes? Do you think, if humans fought again, it would end the same way? A long pause. Then Mira spoke, voice quiet but unwavering. No, she said. Next time, it wouldn't end. It would change everything. Nara left the hall, her thoughts spiraling. She realized now that humans weren't banned out of fear of destruction. They were banned because they redefined what war meant. For the first time, she understood the stories whispered across the galaxies. The monsters, the martyrs, the myth of the species that refused extinction not through strength, but through will. And somewhere deep in the void, beyond the Academy's orbit, a human fleet slept in stasis, cold, silent, waiting for the call that the galaxy prayed would never come. But every myth, Nara thought, eventually wakes.